Welcome to the e-commerce growth show, brought to you by Segmentify.
Mariana, thank you very much. Once again, we are here joined by Carlos, Scott Emmons, Marianna Satanas, who's the global head of digital sales at Eton Shirts. So, Scott, you can introduce your bio, and we get to this other amazing episode with her.
All right, Carlos, thank you. So hi, Scott Emmons here for another episode of the e-commerce growth show USA. And we are excited to have Marianna Satanas with us today. Looking at your bio, Mariana, you've been, kind of in the e-commerce world for quite a while, and with a lot of different roles, right? Starting, over in the UK. Notably, part of Net-a-Porter for some time, from 2006 to 2015, where a lot of changes happened in the e-commerce world as well as at Net-a-Porter over that time as well. In 2016, you jumped over the pond to New York City and have had multiple roles in e-commerce, a lot of that around luxury and fashion, with a couple of exceptions that we'll talk about. Today with Eton Shirts, focusing on the B2B side and the wholesale side of that business, from what I can tell from your bio. We'll love to hear more about what that role entails. So thank you for joining us on National Dance Like a Chicken Day, first of all. It's also more apropos to me, it's also National Buttermilk Biscuit Day, which
oh wow, nice.
Very appealing to me. So thank you very much for having us. And you are joining us, I assume, from New York?
I am, yes.
Great. So I'm in Dallas, and Carlos, where are you today?
In Denmark.
In Denmark, still in Denmark. Yeah, I always have to check with you.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Okay, so let's
international.
Yeah, we have a family in Brazil, family in Denmark. It's so
nice.
Yeah.
Let's start off on a personal note. When I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, getting ready for today, one of the things I noted is that you speak Greek. Tell us about that.
Yes, my parents are from Cyprus, and so I'm first generation born Greek Cypriot. So growing up, my first language was Greek. Well, I say first. When I started speaking, my first words were Greek, until I went to like nursery, like preschool. So yeah, and Cyprus is like my. It's definitely close to my heart, and go there quite a lot, especially as children. Every holiday we were there.
Awesome. It's a place I have not been to yet, but is definitely on my bucket list of someplace.
Oh, you should go.
Yeah, someplace I need to go.
Yeah.
Sorry, are you into tennis by any chance?
I used to play tennis when I was at school, yeah, and I love watching Wimbledon and the US Open. That's for sure.
Because I played tennis myself until I was 18 years old, and I had the opportunity to see Bagdatis,
Nice.
That guy is insane, and he's from
crazy insane.
Really crazy. All his style, so aggressive, and it's just amazing. So yeah.
Aggressive Greek go hand in hand.
Yeah.
No matter what you do.
Now, sorry, did you ask me a question?
No.
Oh, sorry. Go on, Scott.
All right. Well, let's go back in time a little bit and maybe talk a little bit about your time at Net-a-Porter, which, as we said in the intro, 2006 to 2015. You evolved definitely in your role there, right? Over time, and kind of grew, I think, in terms of responsibility and what you were doing. with those folks. And like I said, when you look at the kind of the history of Net-a-Porter, a lot of big changes there in terms of ownership and being acquired around 2015, I think, by Ukes. And so tell us a little bit about how you landed your role at Net-a-Porter and how things transpired. How did you get from A to B there?
Yeah, sure. I guess it all started, like I studied graphic design at college and university. And when I was at university, there was a whole bit.com bubble. And obviously and we started learning about like web development and then Flash and then designing for the web. And it was like, what is this? And this is back when we were on dial-up. So getting onto the internet it took you about 10 minutes just to even open a page. But as time evolved, I left university and my first job was actually at a company that sold EPOS systems to stores. And they were really wanting to have, websites. And, a lot of the customers were, they were quite high-end luxury. They were selling quite high-end luxury brands, and they always referred to Net-a-Porter. And that's when I first had a Net-a-Porter. So we're talking like late 2005, early 2006. And so I would go on the site. I'm like, who's buying 1,000 shoes that cost £1,000 online? This is crazy. You're going to want to have to try it on. And the concept to me was just like, this is never going to work. But I was completely wrong and glad I was wrong. So then I decided to leave the company I was at. I mean, it was great, but I wanted to get a bit more experience. So there was an opening at Net-a-Porter as a web producer, which was part of the IT team. And my responsibility there was to create the content that our creative team had designed and basically develop it for online. And at the time, there was only two of us doing this role in the IT team. And when I joined, I think there was only like 20 developers. And Net-a-Porter just launched the DC in the US as well. So we were quite a small team. And by the time I left, there was about 250 people in IT. So, we grew massively and really fast as well. So it all started from me working closely with creative and marketing, and working on the magazine, and then making sure that the homepage was done on time. And it naturally evolved from there. It was all open planned. It was an office in Whiteley's, which is a mall in Bayswater in London. All open planned, and we were open planned, but not to say that people didn't really speak to each other, because we did. But creative used to just send, the assets to IT. IT would do it and be like, okay, we're live. There was no communication in between. But when I got there, I was like, because I was used to dealing with other customers, I'm like, okay, I've done it. It's on staging. Do you want to check it? And creative were like, what do you mean? Do we want to check it? I'm like, well, check it. See if you're okay with it, how it looks. And then we started a new approval process. And then from there, we just, we just evolved. Net-a-Porter was all about pushing the boundaries. And everyone having their own autonomy, and just always not necessarily we never thought any idea was a bad idea. Let's try it, let's see how it works, let's go for it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So yeah, it was, we had a lot of fun at Net-a-Porter to begin with. And then quickly it was, okay, we're launching an outlet. So I was like, okay, we're gonna have another shop front, and that was a lot of fun. And we did that fairly quickly. Again, we launched this when we were on Whiteley's. It was the same team until we built up the outlet team. And I remember the launch of the outlet. It was literally 4:00 in the morning, and I pressed the button to go live. And Natalie Massenet and Stephanie Fair were there with us at 4:00 in the morning, handing out teas and coffees and breakfast on their trolleys, because that's what the leadership team did, right? They were just like, you guys are working hard. growing this business, and we're going to be here with you. Doesn't matter what level you were on or what your title was, we were all in it together. And it was a great moment. It was great. And then from there, I was managing the two businesses. My team had expanded. I was now web production manager. So my team were responsible for creating the content on both websites and managing it. And, our relationship, IT's relationship with creative and marketing became much more closer. We were working much more together. It was always, we reported to different people, but we were one team because we're all part of the same process and the same vision. And then after a couple of years, well, not even after a couple of years, actually, shortly after the outlet launched, it was, okay, what's the next big thing? And it was the creation of Mr. Porter, which I hold very, Mr. Porter is very special to me. I was a part of a little team working on it from 2 years before it even went live. We had, we had the opportunity to submit a business idea to the exec team. And I was one of the people who submitted an idea about having our own men's site or men's brand. And anyone who had a similar idea got to work on Mr. Porter from the very early stages. And it was great. And I was always going to be a part of the build of it because of my role, because I was really on the group level. But as the more and more I worked on Mr. Porter, the more and more I don't know, it became really special, and I loved it. It was great. It was going to be a great brand, still is a great brand, great buy. And then once it launched, I was finding that I was across all three sites, and it just became too much. So I wanted to become quite focused on one brand. And at that time, we had split the teams. You had teams that were across the group who were working on the three websites, like central services, but then you had like product teams and dedicated buy teams, dedicated creative teams and dedicated front end teams who were working on each site. And there was an opportunity for me to join Mr. Porter and I started off as a product manager there. And then from becoming a product manager, we then evolved to become like head of e-commerce. But I was working very closely, so the product owners and I sat with the IT team, and then I had the site trade team who also reported to me, literally sitting on the bank next to us, because again, it was still open planned. And then, it was fun. Like Net-a-Porter was fun. It was never, there was never a dull moment. And I always say that I graduated from Net-a-Porter. Like that's when I learned everything that I know today about e-commerce.
You can tell that you speak about it with passion. So you can feel that you loved that role. And it's a really interesting story to me because I grew up in from the IT infrastructure, IT technology, and sort of grew into the role of being on the business side, right, and the customer side of fashion and luxury. So it's not where I started. So I feel some similarities there. As I was a very technical role. I actually was brought on at Neiman Marcus as a business intelligence consultant. Is how I started there, and was doing product reporting and building data marts and that sort of thing. So it was quite a different role at the time. I was interested early on in your story there, that you mentioned that you ran into some kind of silo issues, even for an all digital play. You had creative not necessarily talking with the technical team and so forth, and you had to bridge some gaps. Where I had to, deal with that, and maybe, we also had our physical store business was a much bigger business at the time than our online business at Neiman Marcus. But there definitely was these silo issues there as well, and interested to, hear, how did you guys, approach and overcome those communication challenges?
I mean, it was quite easy because we were a small team at that time. And it was literally just hopping across over to the creative desks and talking to them, or just sending an email, just including people more in the conversation. Like, there was some things that could get designed that at the time wasn't necessarily how the designer would have envisaged it on the web. Because when you design, back in those days, when you were designing, it wasn't easy as it is today to translate onto the web. So we had to have that conversation, and it was like, sometimes it was a compromise. It was like, okay, you can't do this because it won't look like how you want it to do, but you can do this. So I'm a strong believer, like, it's never a no. It's like, okay, what can we actually do? And then, then it just organically happened. You just started having these conversations and these discussions. And I remember when Jo Baldwin joined Net-a-Porter as a creative director, she and I, we're great friends today. And we started off, we had a similar vibe. She had this amazing, great visionary and a great creative. And, my team was going to basically make her vision come true, so to speak. So we had to be very close, and in what we were doing and how we were progressing. So it's just a case of just talking. Get up and go and talk to someone. Like, don't necessarily just send an email, and if you can go up and talk to people, like I said, we were like an open planned office. It was easy for us to go and tap on someone's shoulder and be like, oh, you got 2 minutes? Can we have a quick chat? I'm a strong believer in communication is the best way to break down silos.
So obviously you guys as a team, and as an organization, were super successful. Net-a-Porter was considered a benchmark, for a lot of other folks, wanting to do fashion digital, in a digital way, right? Certainly you had, the old school players like Neiman's attention, right? Everybody was paying attention to what you were doing and interested in your story. So I assume you guys internally were pretty proud of that, as well as I assume pretty hungry to beat the competition.
Yeah, we were always, leaders, not followers. That was our mantra. And, Natalie Massenet she drilled it into all of us. It was like, the customer is at the heart of everything that we do. And you always have to think about the customer and what does the customer want, or what's the customer, what doesn't the customer, what don't they know what they want? Do you know what I mean? Like, same day delivery, next day delivery. This was back in 2009, I think it was, or 8, I can't remember when we launched it, but it would same day delivery in the same city, like major cities like London and New York. Back at that time, were Amazon even doing it? I think they were, but it was just, how can we service our customers in the most convenient way to them?
Table stakes now, right?
Pardon?
I said it's table stakes today.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But, give the choice to customers. Some people don't want it the same day or the same day. They actually want it in 2-3 days, fine. Okay. But it's all about giving that customer the choice and literally putting them everything that we do. And, that also had to be the case for online. Are they on their mobile? Are they on desktop? Which browser are they in? The amount of testing that we used to do in IT and I remember having these massive debates about Internet Explorer and which version are we going to cut off, because Internet Explorer always used to be that pain point. It was like, no, it was everything else but Internet Explorer, no. So yeah, it was just in our DNA. The customer is at the heart of everything that we do, and I still have.
I remember sitting through endless debates on, should we offer free shipping? That was and before they finally just, somebody said, we had a very strong president of e-commerce come in and say, this is stupid. Of course we should be doing free shipping. What the world is today.
Yeah. But
You
it's
know,
the
some-
cost of the business, right? It's when you look at the P&Ls and everything else, it is a cost of business. But what's more important, keeping your customers or just taking a little bit of a hit that you will make up for it later on?
Yeah, especially with the margins you see in luxury.
Yeah.
So, you know, thinking about, you know, how passionate you have been about the Net-a-Porter story. You know, you left in 2015. What motivated you to move on?
I mean, I was not looking to leave. When I left out on my leaving party, a lot of people, they came up to me separately and were like, "We thought we were going to bury you in a Mr. Porter suit bag." Like, I was just not looking to leave. But, you know, I'm always open to new opportunities, and I guess the right opportunity came along. I had a lot of opportunities over the years. I'm like, I'm at the best company in the world. Why would I leave? But then I got an email on LinkedIn about DKNY, and the opportunity to be VP of Ecom for DKNY. You know, LVMH still owned it at the time, and the public school boys were the designers. Hector Mulis was the gentleman who poached me. He was a chief brand officer, and it was an exciting opportunity. And I was like 35 at the time, and I was like, oh my God, it's New York, it's DKNY, it's like getting a chance to redesign, re-platform. You know, I had CRM under me as well, and email, and you know, it was a chance to, you know, we were going to implement omnichannel, as everyone does, and I just couldn't say no. I literally just couldn't say no, and it was crazy because when I told my boss I was leaving, I felt like I was breaking up with someone. I did. It was just, you know, it felt so right from the beginning, the minute I had my interview. But when it came down to it, you know, and I was thinking about it realistically, I was moving away from my family. I was moving away from my friends and dear friends that I've known since I was like 3 years old. And, you know, I was moving away from Net-a-Porter. But then on the flip side, I was moving to New York, which to me was the only other city I can live in, apart from London. And I was going to work for DKNY, and I had a chance to, you know, make a big change there. So I took it.
Amazing. You know, and so I'm sure that was a bit of a culture shock to, you know, go from London to New York, but obviously you've settled in nicely. And as you said, when you left Net-a-Porter, you went to DKNY and spent some time heading e-commerce for those guys, and then on to Alice and Olivier, I believe, and even some consulting, at least a short gig of consulting with Barney's on e-commerce, which I'd love to pick your brain on that Barney's experience, since they were, you know, from my Neiman Marcus years, you know, Barney's and Saks is who we thought about most of the time when we were thinking about, you know, direct competition. Yeah.
I mean, I've always loved Barney's. Always, even from, you know, coming here as a tourist, before I lived here. It was a very cool store, very cool concept, and I loved their actual buy as well. It reminded me a lot of Net-a-Porter because, you know, it was curated and it wasn't what everyone else was buying. So yeah, no, I joined Barney's for a short stint. It was okay, let me go and see if I like it. Let me see if I like the culture. Let me see if I like, you know, what they're doing. And it was an interesting time. I think when I joined, it was kind of like the beginning, not the beginning of the end. That sounds horrible, but I think it was a pivotal time for them. And a lot of changes had happened, and were continuing to happen. I mean, it's very sad.
Look, yeah. Even from a competitor's viewpoint, it was sad to see that go.
Yeah.
I certainly was not rooting for the end for those guys. You know, thought it was a story that should have continued.
Yeah, no, for sure. And they definitely had the opportunity to do so. And there was a lot of visionaries in there and people who wanted it to succeed. It just unfortunately just didn't happen. But they were doing great things. When I was there, they launched buy online, pick up in store for a short while. That was good. That was good to be a part of that project. And there was just like a lot of things that they had to clean up because they did move away from one platform to another platform. And when they moved to a new platform, I think that's when they found challenges, with merchandising, with search. And it was just things that you would take for granted as being the basics, but it's the basics that make you successful as well, right? Because if you can't merchandise your page, then it's going to be an issue. Like if you have to keep on working on your search, again, that's an issue. And I think a lot of people don't realize that having an e-com site it's a lot of work, and you have to keep on evolving it and you have to keep on working on the basics so you can do the innovative stuff.
I lived through a $100 million conversion to Oracle ERP and at Neiman's that didn't go well at first implementation, where we were not accurately reflecting inventory and selling things that we didn't have, and all sorts of terrible experiences for our customer. And it was not easy to fix, but it got fixed, right? Eventually the bumps got smoothed out and life moved on. But when you say it's hard, it's absolutely hard.
Yeah. And it's, you need to have the right people as well. You need to have the right team. You need to have knowledgeable people who know what it means to re-platform, you connecting all the dots. Because if you don't have the right inventory on site, then what's going to happen? If you're not, got the right inventory levels, then you're letting down a customer because they thought they were going to have something and then they don't.
I would assume Barney's had some issues with similar to what my experience was that there was an awful lot of legacy systems that had to be brought into play with the new thing, and making the old play nice with the new, and really it not being affordable or economical or physically possible to just throw out all the old is where a lot of the hard comes in. This is an issue that like a Net-a-Porter wouldn't have because they had this greenfield start, right?
I mean, look, and Net-a-Porter was a different story because it was all our own system that we built.
That's what
it was proprietary, right? So you had the other issues. I mean, we had to keep on not re-platforming, but changing how the platform work and looking at our architecture all the time, but it was easier. You're right. It was easier to pivot. But with Barney's, is this new system the right system? Because it's quite a monolithic system. And could it do what we needed it to do? So yeah, it was a challenging time, but like you said, you got the job done no matter what. And the team worked very hard to do that.
So you accepted, kind of a challenge to change, your career by, coming to New York. And then after Barney's, you took another, kind of a pivot and spent some time at Welco.
Yeah.
And so, which looks like it was a sales and marketing role, a little different than, what you've been doing previously. And now you're in the beauty business on top of that. So tell us about that.
Yeah. I mean, I love a challenge, if you can't tell. I love a challenge because, that's how I learn. So yes, even though I was GM sales and marketing, I was responsible for the website as well. And it was, it was an interesting business. I didn't know much about, obviously I know about beauty, but not being in it, and wellness. And again, it was an exciting opportunity. We opened the store in Soho. Head office was in Perth in Australia. And I love Andrea, who was CEO and co-founder at the time. My interview was over Zoom, and pre-pandemic, right? So it was before every single meeting was on Zoom, and I was like, oh my god, like, am I going to really accept a job over Zoom? Never met this woman before in my life, but actually we had such a good connection, and she's an amazing person. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Actually, this is more of a responsibility for me, I wanted to change myself. And for, I think, about the 6-7 months I was there, I had a lot of fun. Again, we were building, and I'm a builder. Like, I love that idea of building. Like, well, let's build and see where we can take it. It was like a great opportunity to do it, so we did. Unfortunately, there were some issues with senior management, and that's why I left.
Yeah, well, that can happen. It's
I was kind of like I was just what's the word? I've forgotten the word, but anyway, stuff happened.
You moved on.
Stuff happened, I moved on. Yeah.
And so here you are today at Eton, a very storied brand, right, with a long history.
Yeah.
You're now you're not on the customer side; you're on the wholesale side. So I'm really interested in that story. Having come from my 16 years at Neiman's, this is a brand that was around from 1907, right? So we always had that long history that we had to live up to, right? But we had to modernize what we were doing and kind of move with the times on top of that, which was not always easy to do. And it feels like, kind of researching, what you've been up to since you've been there, that you've been doing some fairly innovative stuff, you've brought to the table in this new role, including this Eton Digital Showroom, which I'd love to learn more about.
Yeah. So again, I wanted to pivot. I've always been on the D2C side for like 15 years, and this opportunity came up. I was like, wholesale. I mean, I know about wholesale, and I've worked with wholesale teams, but I've never actually been in a wholesale team. And to be honest with you, I knew what I had to do, which is work with the sales team and our partners, our customers, B2B customers, in growing the online sales. Eton's such a great company, and such great people as well. So with the digital showroom, it's under we've got a global what's his title? It's Global Customer Excellence Director, Jacob Dahl, and he's been at the company for years. I think 6, 7, 8 years, and he started off as a sales associate, like a sales manager. And he kind of realized that, we need to make it easier for our customers to purchase online. Like, we expect our end consumers have got everything online. So why don't our retail customers, have the same thing? And we're very fortunate that it launched in late 2019. We launched a digital showroom, which basically all our collections, that's when our customers can buy the product. And we've also got another site, which is the B2B, which is all our replenishment and what we call wardrobe essentials. So our continuity product, customers can also buy it on there as well. So you don't have to, you don't now have to go to a showroom and buy the product. And when we first launched, there were a lot of customers who were quite, resilient to it. They like, no, we want to come to a showroom and we want to buy the product. Great, fair enough. You can do that. But we also wanted to start pushing people to buy online, which was a crazy concept, because all these retailers have got websites where their customers are buying online, right? But some of them they couldn't get it just didn't resonate with them because they're so used to being in person and buying from the showroom. So, you know, I'm always trying to find a silver lining in the pandemic. 2020
well, your timing was pretty good. The timing
was definitely spot on. And so, you know, in the middle, you know, pandemic hit, and it was like, oh my God, what's happening? And, you know, a lot of our customers, they didn't want to buy anything else because they wanted to, you know, they had to get rid of the inventory that they already had.
Sure.
You know, melt the pile. You know, you just literally just shipped a new season and the pandemic hit. So we didn't know whether people were going to, you know, use either B2B platforms or the digital showroom platform, but we kept going. And we found that even though our customers wanted to melt the pile, the end consumer, they still want newness, right? You don't want to be seeing the same thing 3-4 months down the line. You want to see new stuff. Even at that point, people weren't really going anywhere. I think people were still shopping and purchasing stuff because we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how long it was going to last. So people were hopeful. But what's good, and you know, is that even today, when we're seeing a lot of markets open up, and people are just, companies don't want their people, you know, they think safety first. You know, if you don't have to fly, don't fly. If you don't need to go to a physical showroom, don't go. You know, you've got the means now to buy it from a digital showroom, which is a website essentially. So, you know, yeah, is definitely great timing, but it's also, even though, you know, Eton is 90-year-old company, and with the new leadership, you know, it was very much, okay, how can we digitize a lot of our tools?
Mariana, how much of the business is B2B and how much of the business is direct to consumer?
It's definitely come down. I think we're kind of like I think about 65-70% is wholesale.
All right, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's come down though since I joined. It definitely has, because we re-platformed we got a new e-commerce director who came from Google, and she's been in the business. He started January 2019. No, 2020 actually. Sorry. So, you know, we re-platformed, redesigned, and are definitely now more focused on direct to consumer. And, you know, he and I always say that even though I'm in wholesale, he's in e-com, we're digital sales.
Yeah.
So my role, I'm still looking at the end consumer. You know, my responsibility is whatever the sales team, whatever our customers have bought, I've got to make sure that we are giving them the best tools, and that Eton and the product is being presented in the best way possible. So, you know, I'm not directly working with the end consumer, but my goal is the end consumer. You know, the product, and it's going to sound, again, it's the basics. The product description is correct. The image is correct. Are the product titles correct? Are you getting your product on time? Are we giving you marketing tools so you can sell the products to your end consumers? You know, are your your visual merchandising teams, your copy teams, so they've got enough knowledge of the product? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's definitely, we're now more of a D2C focused company than we were in the past.
All right. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time thinking about, you know, digital transformation for our merchant teams, and you know, there was definitely a lot of room for, you know, bringing technology to bear, you know, to give them a better, more efficient process and so forth. So, you know, I see a lot of parallels to your story here. You know, one of the things that, you know, constantly came up, you know, when I was thinking about that role was the whole visualization of the garment and the material and how it draped and, you know, you know, those were all things that they would go to market to find out.
Yeah.
I also suspect a lot of the reason, that a lot of the folks that took that job was because they got to travel to market.
Yeah.
Right. Who
doesn't love traveling? Come on.
It didn't really. I don't think it paid all that great. So the perk was you got to travel to all these cool places, right? And you got a discount, when you bought your stuff. But the did you build, how did you solve the visualization problem? Did you partner, with somebody? Did you build it in-house? How'd you go at it?
For the digital showroom?
Yeah.
So we partnered with a company called Centra. And they're a Swedish company. I believe they did like Nudie Jeans website. And essentially they basically built kind of like a PIM. Not accidentally, but just as they were doing this digital show, I'm like, it's kind of like a PIM. This is great. So that's who we partnered with, and that relationship worked so well that we've actually used them for our own e-commerce site as well.
Oh,
yeah, so they're really cool. They're a really cool team. They're really innovative. They partner well. They want to push the boundaries. So it was a good partnership.
So, I think there's probably a pretty good sustainability story to this as well. I mean, you've reduced travel, as part of this. You don't have merchants running around with reams of paper, at market. Are you guys taking advantage of that story as well, the sustainability piece?
Yeah, I mean, and this was like before the pandemic. It was always, it was something that the team just kicked off and just started. Well, not just started, but, been talking about it for a while, but actually had a plan in place. And again, the pandemic just accelerated the plan. And we've reduced travel, which definitely helps a lot. Can I just say, side note, I still believe in person, like meetings and communication is still a great way. Sure. It's not just about let's just completely alienate and get rid of like in-person appointments, but let's have the option at least.
If I don't get out of this house soon, I need travel does need to happen.
Oh my God, Scott, literally, I was traveling like every 6 to 7 weeks, and now I'm like, okay, I've been in the same city, the same state for like a year. What's going on? I know. But yes, so in terms of sustainability, definitely the traveling and has helped, but also we. Our cotton, our cotton's we're using more sustainable organic cotton. We've just done a partnership with Cebu, which I don't know if you know it, Carlos, but it started in 2019, and it's a Swedish Moroccan company that sell rugs, and they make their own rugs. And we basically, they go to fashion brands and get the excess fabric that they don't use. So we just donated a whole lot of fabrics to them, and they managed to make some beautiful rugs. And we've also, for a limited time, got you can have your own custom-made rug with Eton fabric. Cool. So that's on the limited time at the moment on their site.
Right. That's a great story.
Yeah, so we're always looking at ways where where we can help, and we can make a difference. Doesn't matter how small or how big it is. But for me, from a personal level, it's important that I'm working for a company like that. Which Eton is, and it's great.
Mm-hmm. Still, like on this. On the sustainability side and content creation side and maybe marketing side, what can you tell us about, maybe some of the changes and maybe how it is to work with the Swedes? I think they're pretty laid back, right? Like they, let's say, compared to.
I believe, Carlos, you claimed that Swedes and Danes were very similar.
Well, they always say they're very different, but I would say they're not.
They're quite similar. They're very similar. Yeah. They're cool. They're cool people. Yeah, it's very chill. It's very, they're in the Nordics. They're very much of a Mediterranean attitude. It's all right, we'll get to it. Well, you got the Brits and then the US. I'm like, we want it now. We need it now. I mean, it's just another different culture mix to get to know, and brilliant people, lovely people, very calm people. Like I said, there's me, the Greek Londoner going, I need this. What are you doing? But yeah, so to go back to your question again, great timing with what we did, and we built a new in-house studio that also went live at the end of 2019. So when it came to creating content in the pandemic, for us, it was, we had to do it safely, but it wasn't as much as an issue as it would have been if we didn't have our own studio. And a lot of our customers, they had to furlough some of their staff. Well, a lot of their staff. We service our retailers by giving them our vendor products, so our VPIs, our product images. And some of our customers, they wanted to shoot their own images because, they got their own style, their own kind of branding coming along and how they're styling and shooting, but they couldn't shoot anymore. And they had all these new products that they had to upload, and they didn't have a team to shoot it. So because we were able to still carry on with that production, we then gave them our content, which was great. And then we also, last year, all our marketing initiatives we had to rethink about, because, you had to be sensitive to what was going on. And we did this work at home initiative that anyone who posted a social media image of themselves in an Eton shirt or an Eton product and tagged us and tagged work from home, we donated shirts to Dress for Success and Career Goals in the US. So Dress and Success is the UK, Career Goals is in the US, where they help people get back to work. So we donated a shirt for every post. Again, we wanted to be sensitive to what was going on, and we wanted to help in our own way. And then we did and because of the studio as well, we managed to do a campaign called 7 Days, 7 Ways, which was a great success. And that was focusing on our casual range. Now, coincidentally, we had launched our casual range, new category, a few years back, but it was quite small. And we weren't really pushing it as much as we should have been, but because of the pandemic, we had to just accelerate those plans. So our marketing was becoming more about casual, which was great for us because it was a new category that we're pushing, but it was also very relevant to working from home, because we joked that a lot of guys had their shirts hanging up for their Zoom meetings. They would wear it and then they'll just take their t-shirt off. But actually, if you've got a comfortable casual shirt, you can do both. So yeah, we definitely had to be. It was the same thing, sensitive to what was going on, but also have a little bit lightheartedness and sell product that we tried to do.
And do you think that the Eton customer is someone who demands that sort of attitude, like environmental, ESG? I think it's the big word in the street nowadays, right? I interviewed Professor Raj Sisodia, who was, the guy who helped. What's the name of the founder of the Whole Foods Market? You remember him, Scott? Or you guys remember?
No, sorry.
Anyhow, he was the guy with the founder of the Whole Foods Market, who was he did a study on how investing in the community and actions as such, like taking care of the community, you don't really need to invest in marketing, because then you got like the word in the street, word of mouth, people talking about your brand and stuff like that. So I'm actually curious on this side of the business as well, since you're talking about sustainability. How is it that you guys manage to survive, right, with the customers that you have and these actions?
I don't know if our customer demands it, but I know they're conscious of it.
Right.
So, and that's hard to say how I know that, but we just know, because they do take part in these initiatives, and they do, they do comment when we do initiatives like with Seibu. And Eton is very well known in Sweden. It's definitely like a heritage brand, and we do, even with like our collaborations and people we use, like brand ambassadors that we use, they're local, so they're local Swedish businessmen that we use, and even like over here, like Marcus Samuelsson, who is an Ethiopian Swede. He's a chef for Red Rooster. So we work with him, and we gave him some shirts as well. So it's giving back. It's working with the community, working with local like brand ambassadors, and through them, like they know the brand, right? And through them, they will talk about Eton. So it's definitely it's keeping it local, keeping it real, and kind of like word of mouth as well. That's your customers are your best pieces of marketing and advertising, right? We have got a very loyal customer base, very loyal. Like once we've got you, it's great quality. For me, I think it's a great price range. And Eton's just a lovely company, and I think that comes through in everything that we do. And our customers love it, and then they will they will go and then tell their friends. But what actually was interesting when I first joined, I heard of Eton, but I didn't realize how successful it was and how many men actually wore it. And when I spoke to a lot of my male friends, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to Eton. Like even my 56-year-old cousin, right, who just he's not a fashion guy, but when he buys and he likes a brand, he will just buy in bulk. And he's like, oh my God, yeah, Eton, love Eton. All my friends, all my guy friends, they all have Eton shirts. I'm like, why have you never told me this before? Like, why have you never mentioned them?
Right.
And I don't know. Like, it's just one of those things. It's
a very rare guy discussion.
Says you, right, Scott? Maybe.
I'm like, we need to be talking about it more. Like, yeah, but I think that comes down to being Swedish, right? I think it's
fair enough.
So time has flown by. And we had several things that we wanted to talk to you about that we haven't even hit upon yet, including maybe we can end on this, kind of an overview. Both Carlos and I are very interested in your involvement with the Hive and what that is and what that means and who should belong and, what are they getting out of it?
What are they getting out of it? Oh, people?
The members, yeah.
Yeah. So the Hive, I knew the Hive from England. I used to go to quite a few of their events. And what I liked about the Hive is that you were networking with peers from other businesses, from other companies, and you didn't have a vendor trying to sell you their platform or trying to sell you their services. They were there, but they were there in the background, right? And I love that because I don't like going to an event and I've just got, oh, we would like to talk to you about this. And we're like, come on, really? So yeah, it was great because you were, we had a lot of roundtables. And you were able to get knowledge and see what other people were doing. And then pre-pandemic days, Nodge and Sally Green wanted to, they did their first event in New York and wanted to have a great network in New York. And myself and another Hive member, Marcus, we were like, well, why don't we kind of start off like with some founding members in New York, and from our networks, and we can kind of spread the word about the Hive, which is what we did. And, then the pandemic hit and they had to move all their events online. But you're basically getting inside knowledge from the people who are actually working at other businesses, and their expertise. So yeah, it's very like what's going on now.
It's just for brands and retailers, correct?
At the moment, yeah, it's retailers. They do have a finance hive as well, but
Right.
yeah, it's like any brands, like vendors do get involved now, and yeah, it's a great network to be a part of.
Yeah, I think there's something called the Revenue Collective, which is for vendors, and so
Right, yeah.
I think that's the future, because the future of B2B sales, so to speak. I think it's so much word of mouth. You might think something is cool, but you're gonna check up with your colleagues, right? So that's quite interesting. I have a friend who wants to ask you a question. He's here. So he's saying, perhaps regarding the cross-border trade between Europe and US, and how European brands are perceived in the US. As in, Eton is large here, but how quickly did they grow in the US?
Well, North America is our largest market.
All right. Very nice.
You know, geographically, obviously, North America is massive. But yeah, like say my boss, Eric Wilkinson, he's a chief sales officer. He was, you know, when he joined about 10 years ago, you know, he was a part of the team who bought Eton over here and really grew the wholesale side and Eton brand, over here. I don't know if you know him, Scott. Eric was at Neiman's for quite a while. He was a men's buyer there. And
I think we crossed paths, but we're not this was not a day-to-day working relationship.
Yeah. So Eton is perceived differently over here than it is in Europe, because it being a Swedish brand and being so well known in Europe, it's well known over here, but with its customers, it's not as there's still a lot of work to do in terms of the US market, which is great because it is our largest market now, and then there's massive opportunity. And I do think, not just for Eton, but for every European brand, you have to speak to the US in a different way. Still adhering to your brand values and to your brand voice and your aesthetic. But I do believe you have to tweak it a little bit for the US. I don't know if that answers the question, but
it answered it well. All right, so I think that's a good exit point for today's chat. Amazingly, we didn't really there was no real deep dive pandemic talk, which I think is a sign of the times, right? That maybe we're starting to come up for air from this thing. At least it's starting to feel that way. Let's hope so.
In some markets, yes, for sure.
Yeah. No, I realize that there's still a ways to go, but it feels like we're looking at the beginning of the end, maybe in some cases. So let's hope that continues. So. We want to really thank you for coming and taking some of your valuable time to spend with us. Yeah.
Thank you. Great chatting to you guys.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.